Fam. There's a little hoo-ha there for you. Hear a little Al Pacino. Have you found the name of that mafia movie you couldn't remember? By the way, welcome back to the Convo Couch. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I am Fiorella.
And the microphone sounds nice. Is it on?
It's on.
Go like this. Oh, it's working good. There's no static. This is awesome. Fam, we found that sweet spot. And when you find the sweet spot, you got to work it because then you'll have a good show.
And then you yell at me and you say that I'm the one that has a dirty mind and is always saying that's what she said. But literally, you start it.
Okay.
So, fam.
Yes.
I need you to see this. I need the whole audience to see the cartoon world we live in really quickly. I added
cartoon world. Yeah.
I added this tweet because they're trying to take away the beauty of the stars from us and replace it with advertisement, with ads. Fam.
I will bad fam.
Fam. Oh my God. New advertising concept would turn the night sky into ads. People would see brands instead of seeing stars when they look up.
I don't think
guys, you want to see fam.
It's a feeling you get from a Coca-Cola Classic, fam. Look at it.
We are already, and this is where the comic comes out. We're already bombarded by constant propaganda and advertising, and they're gonna put it in the sky. Yeah. Are you fucking kidding me? I can't. I will like cancel the sky. I don't know.
Fam, you can't cancel the sky. By the way, hanging out on Rockford, I think that's Lizzie Prickles. Lizzie, thank you for the little donation on our little Brazil trip. And guys, if you guys want to send some love, of course, for the Brazil one, you can always go to the Convo Couch. You can see it right there. Let me get back into this mode over here. Convo Couch, givesendgo.com/the Convo Couch Brazil. We still have that open and working. Fam, we have a great show today. It's going to be a short show. I am waiting to hear from my guest back. I don't know if my guest is around. I hope she comes on soon. We're supposed to have a Rockfin only section, talk a little bit about some COVID stuff with Shabnan Mohammed. She is a South African activist that was bringing a lot of attention and information to light, is what the Big Lebowski likes to say, on the protocols they were trying to interject into South Africa. We saw the same type of patterns in Ecuador. We saw them at the WHO themselves. We saw them in New York when they just tried to change their health regulations without any judge, without any jury, without any process, without any procedure, just a bunch of bureaucrats finding more power through health protocols. So hopefully she'll be with us and she'll join us. She is amazing. But other than that, fam, we got some crazy stuff going on by your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get this Gaddafi tweet up though while you riff a little bit, if you can riff for me, fam.
Well, I did also want to comment on if you want to go to my Twitter to check out my latest story for RT. It's a story that has rarely been covered by any media. A journalist, actually a current ABC producer, he just abruptly quit, but he has disappeared after his home was raided by the FBI on April 26th of 2022. And apparently they found supposed classified documents. Now, it's not legal for the FBI to go into a journalist's house and try to find information, because as a journalist, you have sources, right? So we know what happened with Julian Assange. So now everything else is like, it's a free for all now. But then also what happened was that he made a tweet the next day on the 27th, and the tweet was him agreeing with an ex-CIA member on how the US has used the Ukraine war to spy on Russian military tactics. And he also had just done a whole documentary on Hulu that focused on the really weird lies around the deaths of 4 army combatants in Niger in a 2017 mission.
Yeah. 4 Green Berets. Yeah.
Yes. And the FBI, well, the State Department completely lied to their families about everything surrounding their death. And he had exposed that, and he has been like a long time, like kind of like, looking at the national security state and the State Department. And so it's really weird. Nobody knows where he is. He disappeared. So you guys should definitely take a look at that. It's on my Twitter.
I'm gonna play a little clip right now, fam.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna play the clip. And something to also think about, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about it briefly on the morning show too as well. This particular reporter supposedly was doing a lot of investigative journalism on the pullout in Afghanistan. And God knows what a money laundering scam that was for so long, that they used pretty charts and colors to convince people that the Afghan war was still worth staying in. This was during the Obama administration too, as well. So here's fam on our tizzle.
While the U.S. boasts about freedom and democracy, both the Trump and Biden administrations have been widely criticized for targeting journalists and their sources. A recent, scantily covered story of a national security investigative producer who disappeared without a trace after FBI agents raided his home doesn't quite help paint the U.S.'s reputation in a positive light, even though there's not many details available. On the morning of April 26, 2022, federal agents raided renowned ABC News producer James Gordon Meeks' apartment in Arlington, Virginia. The raid came as a shock to some of his neighbors, one who described at least 10 heavily armed agents in mostly unmarked vehicles.
They didn't stick around. They took off pretty quickly and headed west on Columbia Pike towards Fairfax County. Most people seeing that green vehicle would think it is some kind of tank, but I knew it was the Lenco Bearcat. That vehicle is designed to be jumped out of so they can do a raid in that kind of time. It can return fire if they're being fired upon.
The FBI confirmed the raid, adding that although there's an ongoing investigation and nothing more could be said, Meeks has not been charged with a crime. But sources claim that federal agents allegedly found classified information on Meeks' laptop.
Mr. Meek is unaware of what allegations anonymous sources are making about his possession of classified documents. If such documents exist, as claimed, this would be within the scope of Mr. Meek's long career as an investigative journalist covering government wrongdoing. Press inquiries on this issue are troubling for a different reason. They appear to be based on statements from a source inside the government. It's highly inappropriate and illegal for individuals in the government to leak information about an ongoing investigation.
Adding fuel to the fire is Meeks' last tweet on April 27th, agreeing with an ex-CIA analyst about how the U.S. is using the war in Ukraine to learn about Russian fighting tactics and have been doing so since 2014. The story gets weirder as Meeks seems to have disappeared, at least according to his colleagues.
He fell off the face of the earth, and people asked, but no one knew the answer.
He resigned very abruptly and hasn't worked for us for months.
And even weirder, as Meeks' latest project was the acclaimed Hulu documentary 3212 Unredacted, exposing how the Pentagon covered up the conditions that led to the deaths of 4 U.S. Special Forces in Niger in 2017 during a battle with ISIS.
We asked, why did these 4 men lose their lives? And no one would give us an answer.
The autopsy report was where it really started clicking that something didn't add up.
Interestingly, Brian Epstein, the other producer who worked on that project, also swiftly left ABC earlier this year. Before his disappearance, Meek gave an interview and spoke extensively on the dangers and injustice of the cover-up.
We need to have accountability. We need to have accountability among the leadership. Leaders must hold themselves accountable, and that did not happen here. The leaders, the men who sent these young guys into battle, on a patrol that resulted in one of the most fearsome battles in memory in a country where most Americans had no idea we had combat troops. They basically disappeared. They not only didn't stand by their men, they did not hold themselves accountable, and somehow they were not punished.
Most notably, months before Meeks vanished, he was finishing work on a book for Simon & Schuster titled Operation Pineapple Express, the incredible story of a group of Americans who undertook one last mission and honored a promise in Afghanistan. He co-wrote the book with Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, a retired Green Beret. But after April 27th, all traces of his association to the book were deleted.
Simon & Schuster has scrubbed his name from all press materials. The first sentence of the jacket previously read, In April, ABC News correspondent James Gordon Meek got an urgent call from a special forces operator serving overseas. Now it says, in April, an urgent call was placed from a special forces operator serving overseas.
So where is James Meek, and why exactly did the FBI raid his apartment? We don't know for sure, but what this case might do is set a scary precedent for U.S. journalists who cover the national security apparatus.
Fam, your mic is muted. I can't unmute you. It will not let
I
me.
unmuted me.
I would like to be able to mute you, but it won't let me mute you. Only you can mute you. But anyways, fam, this is something, when you work as a mainstream media journalist, right? And then you try to step out of line and you are no longer Pentagon friendly. You are more of a dissident and you are now a risk to the State Department. They're going to hand down judgment and punishment much more harder than if, for instance, people like us at the combo couch who always want independence, said whatever's on their mind, they can try to black us out, do whatever. But once you were in their crutches or grips or in their control, and once you were in their employment and you step out, they're going to hit, and they're going to hit hard. So all we can do is send good freaking thoughts and prayers and energy Mr. Meeks' way. But I beg the question too as well. Where is Mr. Meeks?
Yeah. I mean, why isn't the mainstream media blasting the story everywhere? Why aren't there like a million correspondents and reporters talking about this? Because this is a personal story to me as a journalist. Like, it's just like, it's like, it's one of our own, actually, one of the more renowned people, one of the only people that has done in mainstream media this level of work, right? Because usually in mainstream media, you don't get these people that challenge the status quo anymore, that challenge the apparatus, and this guy did. And so I really think, like, why is, like, are his colleagues not more up in arms, right? Why, like, this, and RT, of course, is one of the only networks covering the story. I mean, this is, again, first came Julian Assange, and this is just yet another way to set a precedent and scare journalists from actually going and challenging government corruption, which is the whole point of journalism, was to do that. And now it's just become, what it is. It's just trash. And I do wonder where he is. I hope he turns up. I really don't know. But it's just really frightening how this has just been so completely not reported on. And it's by so many journalists, when it's about an actual really highly acclaimed journalist in mainstream media.
Yeah. It is a shame. And like you said, where are his colleagues? Why aren't they just yelling and screaming? Want to say hi to some people that are in the chat. Of course, Lucky, thank you for coming back. I've missed you for the last couple of days. Steve is there as well. William Wallace, fam. William Wallace. Fam, I think a lot of people are digging the new style. Catalytic Centaur. Anthony is hanging out. Steve, Dolores Pierce. Hey, how you doing, Dolores? Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also everybody else who's hanging out on the YouTubes. Remember, guys, we have a Rockfin. That is our free speech platform. And it's also a platform where there's no advertisement. So thank you so much for everybody. OTR Trucker, we see you. Momka187, thank you so much. Roar Media in the house, thank you. We appreciate you, love you all. Lizzie Prickles, I think that's Lizzie Prickles, fam. And fam, of course, we are also on the Rumble. 18 people watching right now. Come on, guys. Let's get these numbers up. Let's like, share, subscribe. There's some great stories coming in today's show. Fam, I love talking about Mr. Gaddafi over here because there were so many things that Gaddafi was able to do. So go right ahead. Jump right into it. I got it up on the screen. I'll make it nice and big, and you can talk about it.
Yeah, so 11 years ago on October 2011, as you guys remember, Hillary Clinton, Libya's then President Muammar Gaddafi was killed. WikiLeaks revealed her emails showing how NATO and the U.S. orchestrated a coup to depose of Gaddafi to stop his goal of creating the United States of Africa, because that was his intent. He wanted to create a United States of Africa. And under Gaddafi, he was, of course, demonized. When I heard of Gaddafi, I was told that he was an evil, brutal dictator, that he was the worst and he needed to be eliminated. And that's not the truth at all. He provided free healthcare, free electricity. He had internet-free loans, interest-free loans. Newlyweds received $50,000 of money of dollars to find a home. I'm not exactly sure if that was dollars, but another received $5,000 each. All citizens receive a certain percentage of oil exports from the country. Gas was 0.14 per liter. Free education. No Rothschild central bank homes considered human right. That one is big. The central bank, because this is what always happens when you try to get away from that mechanism. This is what they do to you. No electricity bill in Libya. Electricity was free for all its citizens. This is like, I mean, when we talk about socialism and what people have in mind, this is what people in the global south have in mind, right? There was no, like I said, there was no interest on loans. And then, of course, homes are human rights, and so on and so forth. If Libyans wanted to take up a farming career, they would have received farming land, a farming house, equipment, seeds, and livestock to kickstart their farms, all for free, right? So interesting that the U.S. painted him as this brutal dictator, as this leader. Fam, anything to say before I go on?
No, keep going. I'm gonna get to the next one. So let me get to the next.
Yeah, so the next one is just a really good thread that I saw. Pretty much, it was brutal the way he was murdered, and how that was orchestrated. And again, if Gaddafi is, a lot of people compare him to the Chavez of of Africa as a whole, but like of Libya, right?
We got pictures with famous people in the global south that are with pictures with Muammar Gaddafi. So
yeah. So here it is, 10 years ago today. We talked about this, right? The deposed leader of Libya fled Tripoli after the capital fell to NTC forces. He was captured by rebels, beaten, and sodomized with a bayonet, and then shot several times. That is how he was murdered. And it's really sad what happened, because not only because the way he was killed, but what happened to Libya after the fact, right? And Hillary Clinton, of course, was in the position of Secretary of State, and she was somebody that, of course, led this whole thing, right? And the nature of his death, of course, was concealed from the American public. Like, we weren't allowed to know how he died. We weren't allowed to know what happened. We weren't allowed to know anything. And they painted as, oh, Gaddafi's own people hated him so much because he was such an oppressor that they sought justice to try to kill him. That's how they painted the story. Oh, he got what he deserved. These people were suffering. So, and that's just wasn't the case at all. And of course, as we know, after that, Libya turned into with civil unrest, poverty, crime, gangs, and they, of course, justified this as a way to protect Libyan civilians. I want you to understand how these same exact words are used now. They just switch out who the enemy is. But it's the same exact foreign policy, the same exact strategy, tactics, propaganda. The enemy is now different. But the enemy is always somebody that a lot of people support. The enemy is always, whether it's Assad, Putin, usually people that are supported by their government. But, and so she said the famous quote here, right? She said, "We came, we saw, he died." Guys, this is, they boast about what they do. They tell us what they do. They just paint it in a positive way. And then, of course, again, Libya descended into anarchy, and the administration's dream of liberal democratic Libya would collapse in widespread violence and corruption. 1 year later, rebels belonging to the Ansar al-Sharia would attack the U.S. embassy in Benghazi. And we know that now Libya is the world's largest slave trade. And the attack claimed the lives of the U.S. ambassador there and 3 other Americans. When this happened, an event riddled with lies and obfuscations. This is Pasta's favorite word. Typical of the Obama years. They obfuscated, fam.
Obfuscated.
Yeah, so they describe this as a spontaneous demonstration provoked by an obscure American filmmaker a world away. The filmmaker would be later sent to prison on unrelated charges. So Obama administration, of course, was definitely extremely, I mean, this is one of the things that I say is a stain on Obama's record, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I
Adam
mean, we know
Schiff.
how
Adam
Libya
Schiff
is today.
couldn't bomb quick enough for them. Adam Schiff was on Al Jazeera trying to was chastising Hillary for dragging her feet in Libya. Warmongering son of a bitch. Go ahead, fam. I'm sorry.
Well, and as I just mentioned, right? Unfortunately, Libya today, as described on the tweet, is described as a failed state where disparate criminal organizations, and insurgent groups operate with utter impunity. Drugs, weapons, and human chattel, including child sex slaves, are trafficked, bought, and sold there, sometimes in an open-air slave market. So that's before U.S. involvement, you saw what it was, and then after U.S. involvement. And it's been 11 years since this. And a lot of people still don't know about Libya. A lot of people still have no idea what we did and how they boasted about what we did and how, we literally do this all the time. This is just one of many interventions. And these countries end up in horrible situations. And then, of course, we have the migration issue, which we talked about with Anya. And it's just destabilization leads to mass immigration. You want to stop mass immigration? Stop interfering in people's countries. Let them handle it. No. Why? Because we don't want these countries in the global south, especially in the global south, to be independent from U.S., the weight of U.S., the U.S. empire and U.S. control. So this is why when Anthony, our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, goes into Africa, he's not greeted very highly. But when Sergei Lavrov goes in there, he's received with open arms. So there's a huge difference on that.
This is U.S. foreign policy is always advertised in a thick veneer of idealistic feel-good gobbledygook that could very well be the lyrics to a John Lennon tune. It's how you make looting, murder, and failure palatable, righteous even, but blood flows regardless, fam.
Yeah.
And the last part, war in this degraded state of empire is often nothing more than a transnational looting scheme, strengthening Leviathan and nourishing its tendrils while investing in decades of violence and disorder. Sorry, guys, I'm reading from a distance. And the last one, there are some winners, but millions of losers, often entire regions of the globe. And while your everyday American is offered a tiny morsel of virtue for supporting the current thing, the satisfaction is always fleeting. After all, there are still slave auctions in Libya, fam.
Yep. So, Gaddafi is in an anti-imperialist world. He's known as a very strong anti-imperialist voice, and as somebody that is looked on as somebody that was going to take care of their people. And it's a shame. It really is. And not enough of us were on it when we should have been back then. And that it's only been 11 years, right? And look where we are now.
Yeah. I got something too as well, because we still have it, like, even not just 11 years, is that for even having any chance of the country moving forward, take a look at this, because somehow, some way, one of Gaddafi's son has made it out, right? And he survived torture. He survived, I think he has his finger chopped off or something, but he's trying to get back in and run. And yet the UN and everybody else is still messing with him. Muammar Gaddafi's son disqualified from standing in Libya election. And they kicked back these elections because when they were supposed to have them, rebel groups took the thing. Did I miss it?
No, it's we can't see the title. Can
Oh,
you
my
just
bad.
scroll?
I'm sorry. Fam, I'm trying my best over here. There it is. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Muammar Gaddafi's son disqualified from standing in Libyan election. So there's still forces working against the country trying to get back some form of hope, and from a leader, his son, like I said, who survived a lot of bullshit, was able to come out alive, not tortured, not killed. I believe during a Ronald Reagan bombing of Libya, they killed one of his sons. And another one of his sons was brought to the White House when he was still on the good list with Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. So we're still getting involved. We're still messing around. And we're still not letting the natural course take place. All right,
I mean, this is the Empire, fam.
The Empire. So let's talk about what's going on over there by your neck of the woods. Great reporting, by the way, on that. Let me get this one up. On the reporter who nobody's hearing from nowadays. But we have this awesome video too as well. It's all over the newspaper, right? So I have it right here, fam. So here it says right here, Russian Ukraine on verge of battle for Kherson. Wyatt Reed was on the other day. They were talking about what's going on in Kherson, that they're fortifying, they're amping up. And a lot of the mainstream media in the West was trying to spin it off as, once again, Russia is losing ground. They're losing this war. But can you give us your opinions on exactly what you think it is from what you hear around that neck of the woods? What is going on in Kherson? Because when it was explained to me by Wyatt, it seemed like it was more about, okay, they understand, Ukraine understands that this is its last chance. This is its last shot. If they don't solidify Kherson, they have no chance of ever winning this war. Not that they really have a good chance anyways.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, Kherson is an area that the Ukraine would need to keep. It is a port city in Ukraine, so it's strategically an important part. And it's because it's a port and because of its position, it's going to be an important region, but also just in terms of like the geopolitical aspect of it, it's a very large stronghold of Ukraine, right? And if they lose that, everything else is just there's just no way they're going to be able to get anything. They wouldn't have enough of these territories to really fight back. And of course, we know that the US has already committed to 50 billion more for Ukraine by the end of the year. So in spite of everything, right, they're still committing to this. But again, Russia is barely using much of its military, and they're already really just hitting Ukraine hard now. What's really happening is they're not going after civilian infrastructure. They're going after key areas and where there's artillery, where there's weapons, and they're stopping and intercepting a lot of the Ukrainian missiles that are coming down. Earlier, there was another Ukrainian missile that killed several people, including children. And also, Russia has been trying to intercept as many of these as they can. In the next 2 weeks, I think we're going to see a lot of developments. And there was a meeting as well recently.
Oh yeah.
And
have it in the doc.
The media, yeah, well, the media frame it like as, oh, Putin is softening up and Putin is willing to negotiate, and it's not like that. Russia's only negotiation is respect the liberated territories. Don't come after our shit. We're not. That's it. They're not going to return any of these territories like Crimea. They're not going to do that. They're not. So
yeah. Well, the last comment we had on the up there, I don't know if you guys heard it, but it said that Biden said that Kherson was important. Right here, Biden says Kherson is important for the U.S. election. No kidding. I don't know if he said this when he said that the most important thing you can do during a hurricane is get vaccinated for your prep, but maybe the guy's just off his rocker. And then somebody else said that Zelensky needs to be taken out ASAP. I want to talk a little bit about Putin, because I think a lot of people don't realize, fam, they think that Putin, because of Western media and the way he's portrayed, is more like this evil Thanos character. I mean, they've even said it's one man. This is one man. He's going against his people's will. He's a dictator, whatnot. But a lot of people don't understand that there's a process. There's actually governance inside Russia. There's people like Lavrov who have a lot of decisions to make, whatnot, and are leaned upon. Shoigu. People are just really in the dark about the way not only the Russian government works, but where Vladimir Putin came up and who he was and how he was trusted. It wasn't the normal course of going to power. If you have ever seen of coming to power, excuse me, if you haven't got a chance, go watch the Oliver Stone interviews with Vladimir Putin. You'll get a whole different perspective. And, people always will mention, fam, he was in the KGB. Like, they're trying to mention that he was this spy, this evil guy. And even when they portrayed the Russian character in the Kevin Spacey TV show, they portrayed him, and that character was supposed to parallel Putin as a thug, as a criminal, as an off-the-rocker guy, an on-edge guy. I want to start talking about where do we go from here, because now after the Crimean Bridge was attacked, we saw these strategic long-range missile attacks, a lot of them coming out of the Black Sea, coming out of submarines. The reason why they do that is because you can't track these things until after they hit half the time, because you don't know where they're coming from, especially if they're coming out of the water in subs. We see these long-range tactical attacks hitting a lot of infrastructure and whatnot. But we also see mobilization in Belarus now, which a lot of people are feeling that, like what you just said, within the next couple of weeks. I know me and Steve have made a commitment on the morning show, and I think we need to make a commitment now too as well, is to get a lot of more tactical people on, maybe get Scott Ritter back on, maybe talk to Swoboda, because it seems like within the next couple of weeks, something's going down. And we're going to show a little bit of this press conference. Well, one of the questions from the press conference when Putin was asked, fam, will Ukraine be able to exist as a state with its current government right now? And I think we're moving more towards Gonzalo Lira's theory, what he said months ago, that no, once they solidify the Donbass and once it's liberated, they're going to have to march to Kiev, because I don't think it will be any choice. And I don't know if the West, by pushing Zelensky, because all this is a proxy. Okay, everybody's got to understand that since 2014, this is a proxy here. This is not a sovereign country and Zelensky making it to stand by his people. They are taking marching orders, fam, from the West. And there's a lot of talk now that once Russia had once surrounded Kiev, that the only reason why they pulled back is because they had a deal on the table and Russia was trying to get them to honor it. But just like the Minsk Accord, they didn't honor these deals right now. And I think it's to a point where it's like, hey, man, we've done everything we can, and now it's game time. So I brought this clip of Scott Ritter talking with Judge Napolitano, Paisan fam, about who Vladimir Putin is. And I think it's interesting to kind of play this first so we understand, because Putin doesn't make all these just decisions by himself, but he is making a lot of decisions. He obviously is the leader of that country, but I think we should have an understanding of who he is first. So I brought a little clip from Scott Ritter. Anything to say about all that stuff? I just talked all that gobbledygook.
No, I mean, I think it's 100% on accurate. I mean, Ukraine will never, we went past that line. Ukraine will never be what it was before. It's done. The Ukraine you knew that was pushed together between ethnic Russians and a lot of people who are, hate them, or a lot of people who are just feel more in affiliation with the West, and that side, those two, Ukraine will be split in half is essentially what's going on. And the eastern half is mostly ethnic Russians that have been oppressed by Ukraine and the previous government. So they have now, the vast majority of these territories have joined the Russian Federation. There's no going back from that. They have chosen to join the Russian Federation. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. It's what they have chosen to do. And since they chose via a referendum, which is one of the most democratic ways you can actually do something, Russia is going to keep its word and protect these territories that have chosen to be a part of the Federation. It's that simple. And so now there's no going back to giving these territories back to Ukraine. There's none of that. That's it. They
Yeah.
put their foot down. That's it. That's it.
He was trying to say here, Putin, a cab driver, because he did work as a cab driver in between his time of leaving the KGB when it was dissolved and before he went back into government. I also want to say thank you and welcome to Monza West over here, who said Putin will bomb his own people and blame it on the terrorists. No different than our politicians. Well, you really believe in the marketing, man, because there's not a lot of proof to back that up at all. Sorry, pal. But let's take a look at what Scott Ritter, who knows best and knows a lot, what he has to say about Putin. I'm going to mute us up. Guys, Convo Couch, you know the drill. Hit the like, hit the share button.
I think it's the last one. He's a patriot. Look, he served his country in the KGB. And Jack, if you got a problem with that, then guess what? Who has a problem with you serving your country in the CIA? He served his country as honorably as you did, Mr. Devine, in a different service, not with the same level of seniority, too. Keep that in mind. He was a lieutenant colonel doing a mundane job in Dresden, Germany, when the wall came down. He went back to St. Petersburg unemployed. He drove a taxi for a while, got a job with Mayor Sobchak's office, and anybody who dealt with him, from the U.S. consular to every non-governmental people, said he was the most honest man they ever dealt with. Never took a bribe or asked for a bribe. This kind of honesty and integrity and efficiency in operation got him moved up the ranks in Sobchak's St. Petersburg, and then over to the Kremlin, where Boris Yeltsin eventually promoted him to several positions, including the head of the FSB, the former KGB, and then ultimately handpicked him to be president. He inherited a nation that had just undergone a decade of devastation brought on by the West. But did he hate the West? No. He actually started his first years in office trying to court the West, to come up with normalcy in terms of economic relations, because he knew that Russia's best hope for an improved future was good economic relations with the West based upon the notion of equality. No more the West coming in, buying off oligarchs, stealing everything. How about the West coming in under normal contract law and dealing with the Russians as equals? That's all Putin wanted to be treated as an equal. And by 2005, when it became clear that the United States, Great Britain, and the West was not going to do that, Putin then said that I have no choice but to go it alone. And you look at his 2007 speech he gave to the Munich Security Conference, a classic of modern political rhetoric, and you'll know where he's coming from. He's not anti-West. He's just reflecting on the reality that the West is anti-Russian.
Fam, I mean, that's Scott Ritter saying that. And I want to look more into. I've heard bits and pieces of that 2000 speech in Munich. I'm going to go and get that and check that out. You're muted right now. I'm going to unmute you. You have to unmute you. But yeah, I mean, go ahead. Fam, your opinion.
He waited. Putin is criticized, and this has been said by many of us, right? Because he didn't go into Donbass and help before, but he was asked, and he waited. There's been a lot of restraint on Russia, and now Russia's just not going to be restrained anymore because, like Scott said, they are responding to the anti-Russian sentiment. And it's not just from the United States, they're leading it, but it's from their NATO allies in Europe, in the EU. And it's to the point where they're banning anything Russian. Russians are under attack if they're athletes, artists, musicians, and we have okayed this. We're at the point where criticizing Nazis in Ukraine is like a bad thing. Like automatically you're called a propagandist. There's a denial of reality here, and Russia's just responding to what's going on. Nobody's saying that Putin is the most perfect guy, but this is this idea that he's Thanos, that as you described, that he's this evil caricature. It's the same way they painted so many people that or other leaders like Assad, like Gaddafi. It's the same way they do this all the time. And the reality, though, is that when Putin declared the change in the military strategy, right, where they were going to put more people and that they had to go into the Donbass and that these countries were going to join the Federation, thousands of people showed up in the streets in support. Thousands were in support of the referendum. Media didn't cover that. They covered the hundreds of people, like a couple hundred people, right, in the streets that were like the Navalny people. And they were like, that's what they covered, but they didn't cover like thousands and thousands of people. I mean, it was so many people. I would say at least 60,000 were the numbers, at least. We don't get any of that. Joe Biden, as Pasta says, can barely fill his living room.
Yeah.
So the only person that gets high numbers is Trump. When he had his rallies, at one point, Bernie, I don't think he would get those numbers now. And so we don't have like that sort of, leadership, that affinity for most politicians. And it's crazy. And it's not just Putin, because it's not again, we go back to, it's not about liking Putin. It's about the fact that people feel that they're fighting to exist. They're fighting to be Russian, because there's so much xenophobia against Russia, and people have allowed it because it's just always been the thing to hate on Russia. And like, it's crazy, but you're right. We need to understand somebody like Putin, who didn't come from this sort of high-end political background. And it's always those people that the West seems to really attack the most.
When we've talked to some friends that we know that have a lot of knowledge in this area, they said at one point when Boris Yeltsin was just an embarrassment to them, a fall down drunk embarrassment, that they had to come up with somebody, and Putin was the great compromise, because the hardliners were cool with him and the practical people were also cool with him, the non-hardliners, and they settled on Putin taking over. And he also had denied like promotions before that from Yeltsin. But eventually just fell into a position where he was the man taking the reins. Like I said, watch that interview with Oliver Stone. Man, goddamn. We got to get Sean Stone back on the show too as well. Look at this here. This is from Mouse Did. Is it Mouse Did? I think.
Mouse Did. Uh-huh.
I'm looking from a distance, fam, so my eyes are squinting. My computer crapped out, and I need to get a computer. So thank you to all those Super 8 contributions that help us out. I went to Moscow on a peace mission during the NATO war in Kosovo. They let me speak on the largest radio station with a message of peace. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's great. I want to go to this press conference right now, because Putin had a press conference. There's two things I'm going to highlight. One of them is what we're getting to as the main part of the whole show today, about will Ukraine, what's next, what will happen, will they be allowed to exist as far as a state? So this is a press conference. He's taking all these questions. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Alexander Unishev from Life. Several days ago, a man was fined in Moscow for listening to Ukrainian music. This seems like a clear case of overkill, because soon the film Only Old Men Are Going into Battle and can be banned because of their Ukrainian motifs there. And Gogol, I don't know what that means, fam. After all, just because Nazis listen to folk songs doesn't mean the songs themselves become Nazis. What do you think? And what should the attitude to the Ukrainian culture be now? I think this is Vladimir Putin. I think we are constantly indignant at attempts to shut down Russian culture, to cancel it, and completely absurd. As one of the musicians said, such fools, but we must not behave in the same way. That's first. Second, Ukrainian is one of the official languages in Crimea. In one of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation, Crimea Ukrainian is the official language, along with Crimean, Tatar, and Russian. So it would be legitimate in its own right. Third, illegitimate in its own right. Thank you so much. Third, I think there were about 3 million citizens of Russian Federation permanently residing here who are Ukrainians. How can we ban their language and culture? It is unthinkable for us. And so I understand what this is connected with. It has to do with the emotions of the moment. But I think that many of the families now listen to and love Ukrainian songs and Ukrainian.
You want me to read it?
Because I can't see it. So I'm having a hard time.
Yeah. But I think that many of our families listen to and love Ukrainian songs and Ukrainian culture. Back in the Soviet Union, hits sung in Ukrainian were very popular. And I think that we should not be like those who, as I said at the beginning, answering your question, cancel any culture. Culture has nothing to do with it. If the current leadership in Kiev considers it possible to support neo-Nazis and support torchlighting processions in the center of their large cities, as well as people who walk around with Nazi symbols, this has nothing to do with Ukrainian culture. Please.
All right, that was that one part. I want to get into that one question, fam, and I need you to read one more because thank you so much because I'm struggling. It's so far away. But do you have any thoughts about that particular situation when
Yeah.
he's talking, addressing the culture and whatnot? Because I know a lot of people kind of try to make Putin out to be, once again, Thanos and not accepting an understanding of other cultures and understanding the reasons, the pressure he had for waiting so long to go into Ukraine.
He had that pressure because Ukrainians and Russians are brothers and sisters. They're friends. They literally, Russians would go into Ukraine to go to the beaches. Like they know every Russian knows somebody in Ukraine. They, like I said, there's family members that live there. The languages are bonded. There's like he said, like a lot of the people speak Ukrainian and now in these territories as well. So it's not like this, the people like have this hatred. It's the government and sectors of Ukraine that have this anti-Russian idea, and they have been having it for the last year, even before 2014. Like this comes from the bad division from before, right?
Mhm.
And this is what happens when you have groups of people that should have not been together, but there were lines drawn out on a map, and this is what led to that sort of just friction. And so what you're seeing is the result of that. And so what he's saying is, no, we're not promoting the tit for tat in terms of the banning of Russian products and Russian literature and Russian language. That's what Ukraine is doing. This is why, for me, when people try to say Russia is just as bad as NATO and the United States, it is the dumbest thing in the world, because you actually have a side that is pushing Nazis and is pushing the elimination of an entire culture. And then you have the other side that's like trying to stop that from happening. And again, history repeats itself, history rhymes, whatever you want to say. The reality is the Soviet Union defeated Nazis. Okay. It was without the Soviet Union, we would have had the United States and the West might have sided with Germany. Why? Because they wanted to side with the winner. They were going to side with what was more convenient. It took forever for the United States to condemn Hitler. Everybody met with Hitler. They had conversations. This
They
is like,
funded
you can
Hitler.
go back and
Yeah.
look at this. Like they didn't even think he was going to do it that much. They are painting Putin far more worse than they ever painted Hitler at the time. And that is the truth.
Yeah. They funded the American, the Western oligarchs funded Putin, funded Hitler. So I mean, they funded both sides of this war. Fam, this is the part I want you to read because this is the crux of everything. Can you see it from there, or should I make
Yeah.
it bigger?
So this is Andrei Kolshnikov and Kommersant Daily. So do you think Ukraine will be able to exist as a state after all this? What about Russia? And the second question, Mr. President, you don't regret anything, do you? And Vladimir Putin said, no. I want everyone to understand what is happening today is unpleasant, putting it mildly, but we would have got the same thing a bit later, but in worse conditions for us. That's all. So my actions were the right ones at the right time. And what about my first question? Whether Ukraine will exist? Vladimir Putin says, will Ukraine be able to exist as a state? Will Russia? Vladimir Putin. But we did not set ourselves the aim of destroying Ukraine. Certainly not. Meanwhile, at one point, they suddenly switched off water in Crimea, where 2.5 million people live, 2.4 million to be precise. Troops had to enter and switch on the water for Crimea. This is simply an example of the logic behind our actions. If they had not taken this action, there would have been no counteraction. The bridge was blown up. Now we have to think hard. How important is it for the Russian Federation to ensure that Crimea is connected by land? Do you understand? And then Pavel Zarabun said, after the act of terror on the Crimean bridge, massive strikes were launched on Ukrainian territory. Were they effective and are more likely in the future? Putin said, there is no need for massive strikes now. Other tasks are on the agenda because I think out of the 29 targets that the defense ministry had planned to hit, only 7 were not. But now they are dealing with them gradually. There is no need for massive strikes, at least for now. As the future, we'll see.
I want to go back a little bit, fan, right here when he says pretty much, well, the Ukraine will exist, and then the The reporter says, will Ukraine be able to exist as a state? Will Russia? And he says, but we did not set ourselves to aim for destroying Ukraine. Certainly not. And in other words, kind of implying that in the beginning, that's not what it was. It was about annexing territory, saving ethnic Russians, and that's it. Meanwhile, though, at one point, they suddenly switch off the water for Crimea, where 2.5 million people live, 2.4 million to be precise. Troops had to enter and switch on the water for Crimea. This is simply an example of logic behind our actions. If they had not taken this action, there would have been no counteraction. The bridge was blown up. Now we have to think hard. How important is it for Russian Federation to ensure that Crimea is connected by land? Do you understand? I mean, fam, I don't want to read too much into it, but it seems like it's been like, hey, man, like we didn't want to do this, but what choice are we left with? Do you understand what's going on? These Ukrainians that are in charge right now, proxy of the West, will do anything. They'll cut off the water to 2.5 million people. It looks like we have to assure the safety of our people. So that signals to me, especially with the mobilization, because there was a lot of questions about the mobilization over there. Troops are getting ready. There's been troops moved to Belarus. Also, fam, in addition to the mobilization, in addition to him talking about, well, maybe we have no choice, a special counsel, fam, has been set up. I think you were kind of mentioning this before, too, as well. I have it right here. Let me make it bigger. Shut up. Putin orders creation of special counsel for military operation needs. This is just the other day. According to the list of assignments posted on the Kremlin's website, this coordination council will be set up to meet any needs that arise during the course of the special military operation. And I don't want to get too much deep into it, fam, but it seems like a separate council has been set up for another specific action. Troops levels moving, mobilization moving, all moving up. Special jets in Belarus. Your thoughts within the next couple of weeks? I'm going to call it. I think that you're going to see some type of invasion, and I think you're going to see Russian forces move into Kiev within the next couple of weeks into a couple months, because I don't think they're going to allow this government to stand, even with the annexed areas, because somebody even put it in our chat, and we put it up, that they're always going to try to kill Russians. The only way to secure it is to take Kiev and remove the government entirely. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because initially Russia didn't intend to do that. So there's been like three things, right? Initially, Russia just wanted to go in, liberate the Donbass, denazify, and hope, Kiev would pull back. The United States and NATO would stop, and then they could form some sort of allegiance to where, okay, this is what we're going to do. But they were going to hold them to account, because they know this has been done before. We have to go back to the fall of the Soviet Union, right? And then when I forget his name, but he said not one more inch, right?
Khrushchev?
And they lied. They lied.
Yeah.
They lied. And so that's what happened. So they're not going to make the same mistake anymore, right? As you said, this is going to continue. So that initially that was it. Denazify, just get free the Donbass. Now that these territories are a part of Russia, though, he's got to defend these territories that are a part of Russia, but were former Ukraine, right? So, and there's more weapons coming from NATO. There are mercenaries in NATO, literally on the ground in Ukraine. So you have that. And so then it was like, okay, well, we're just going to take these territories that have been free, that want to join the Russian Federation. Now it's like, well, they're obviously continuing and they're not going to stop. And how do we stop them if we don't have our troops there? And now you got Finland and Sweden, you got an attempt to surround Russia's border. We need to continue pushing through. So now I think it's going to go to, well, if there's not an end right now to this, if they're going to continue, I think we're going to see Russia go into Kiev as well. And I think we're going to see that you put on your hat. We're going to see that come to fruition. Now, whether Russia, allows the government of Ukraine to the government, because you guys have to think about this too. Ukraine stopped being a sovereign country the moment the United States and literally interjected themselves and deposed of their democratically elected leader. Ukraine stopped being a sovereign government then. Literally, they did. They're not. Look who's running the show here. Without Zelensky's a puppet. Without the money from NATO and the United States and the EU and all that sinking them, right? Ukraine wouldn't be anything. Ukraine would be just nothing. It's being held up by everybody else. So Russia is going to look at this as, are we going to be able, if we allow this government to continue coming at us, are we going to be able to defend ourselves? Are they just going to continue pushing and pushing? And the United States and NATO have made it clear that their intent is to destroy Russia. Their intent is for Russia to not exist. So the way Russia looks at it is, this is an existential fight for Russia as it exists. But I don't think they would just take Ukraine. I think they would allow maybe for a new government to form. If they win this quote unquote war, then a new government that is Zelensky out, right? That would be selected by the people there, might be something that could happen.
Fam, I got my newspaper hat on because I am a newspaper guy. I think you know this, fam, just like our good friend Fidel Castro. And I put up some stuff. It says Russia is evacuating civilians from Kherson.
Yep.
This is for future combat. We talked about this. Thank you, Steve, for joining the conversation. Thank you for joining the Conf Couch. Almost 400 people on YouTube, and we are so awesome that you guys support us. But please do us a favor. We only got 50 people on the Rockfin. I'm going to drop the Rockfin link. If somebody, Jilly Love, if you can grab it, throw it over there, or Lucky, we'd love you. Drop the link to the Rockfin and to the Rumble inside the YouTube chat, and you guys can share it. Maybe you can watch both at one time. Got my newspaper hat on, fam, because I'm a newspaper guy. This is what's been going on, because the United States is never going to miss a chance to take a disaster or take advantage of it. Iranian troops in Crimea backing Russian drone strikes, White House says. Now, fam, I want to get more information on the drones. I was listening to the Duran the other day. They were talking about some of the drones that they are using that are Iranian manufactured. Same one that the Houthis are accused of using over in Yemen. Iranians have come, I guess, to help them get on the ground. So the United States is going to spin this off, especially for their friends in Israel, to do something. U.S. Iranians in Crimea aid drone attacks. The White House said Thursday that the Iranian troops, fam, are directly engaged on the ground in Crimea, supporting Russian drone attacks on Ukraine's power stations and other infrastructure, troubling evidence of Tehran's role helping Russia as it inflicts suffering on Ukrainian civilians just as the cold and the weather sets in, fam. Newspaper guy with the newspaper hat, fam. The propaganda, they will tell you, they will give you the playbook, they will let you know what's going on. And here's something else that said by one of our folks: at least 3 weeks into the major offensive, ground has got to freeze, and then they're not going to get stuck in the mud. They'll let Ukraine throw troops at them and die trying to advance, though. So that's, a lot of people think that that's the plan right now moving forward in the future, fam. You put up what a coincidence. I'm going to pull this up right now, but that's something to think about, fam, because they are talking about, number one, drone warfare, that they got drones that can get into Kiev now and attack at the center, the heart of Ukraine. So that's something that they're talking about right now. And they're talking about the fact that there's Ukrainian troops on the ground aiding this, fam. So any thoughts about that, about how they can kind of pivot towards Tehran?
Yeah, so not only has Russia told people and to evacuate Kherson, and how everybody's telling everybody to evacuate Kherson, and how even the Chinese foreign ministry also told their people to evacuate. This because I agree an offensive is coming. And so what's going on is Iran is obviously an ally of Russia. Okay. Iran is also an ally of Latin American countries like Venezuela that would have starved, where more people would have starved under US sanctions if Iran hadn't provided food, hadn't provided many supplies. That is something that I think is really a lot of people don't understand. When you swallow propaganda on Iran, and we're supposed to have a couple guests next week to talk about this very situation, you're basically not understanding that relationship. Iran is doing nothing more than what the United States and NATO have been doing for Ukraine. But of course, the United States and NATO don't look at it that way, right? Because they are immune from any sort of rules. Iran is basically helping Russia. But what has the United States and NATO been doing with the weapons, with the money, with the mercenaries, the foreign troops, right, that have been in there? If that's not, come on, like it's very obvious. So now the coincidence is that now the United States is of course pushing this sort of color revolution to try to free Iranian women and from wearing this. It's not even a hijab. It's like a scarf or something. It's not even a full hijab at all. It's like something else. And and it's funny because the United States really talking about women's rights. We have Joe Biden as president right now. We have Jeffrey Epstein's clients running free. I mean, this is we know the United States doesn't care about women in Iran, but it's a coincidence that they're suddenly supposedly trying to support the freedom of Iranian women, while of course Iran is allying very closely with Russia, and they're going to continue to ally because they have a long-standing relationship. And this is where Russia is going to have to decide how they go about this with Israel, because they have this sort of relationship where they'll call out Israel, but they'll still work with Israel. And I said this before, there's got to be a point where Russia will decide and Israel will decide where they go. And it looks like Israel has been supporting Ukraine. So
yeah, but then they said they weren't going to send any more weapons over or whatnot, and so it seems like they've already exhausted that. And behind closed doors, there's some like Russian. There's some agreements between Moscow and Tel Aviv. Fam, we have breaking news here by John Chaos. He says the White House says that Russia overturned Roe v. Wade. So now we know. Well, that's a great one, fam. So, fam, this is something you had over here. You said that the anchors were asked why Russians were evacuating civilians from Kherson, and correspondent Anne-Laure Bance said the city is currently regularly subjected to Ukrainian strikes that target infrastructure facilities such as hospitals when communication was lost. Nice coincidence. So, in other words, they were talking about this, and all of a sudden it went out. Right, fam?
Yeah, so if we can play the video, because this is really, I want you guys to see this. So this journalist started talking, correspondent started talking about how Russia, it wasn't Russia, but Ukraine has been hitting and bombing this area. And as soon as she said that, they lost the connection. So let's just go ahead and look at this. This doesn't have sound. I don't know why the sound didn't come through, but you guys can read it. Take us off the screen. You guys can read it.
So you're not far from Kherson. Why do Russia want to evacuate the civilians from the city?
The evacuation of the city happens in view of a fast advancement of Ukrainian troops towards the city in the course of their counterattack, which is currently underway in the south of this country. Moscow admitted a harsh and quite surprising step during the war, that the situation was really rather tense for Russian soldiers in the field. The city of Kherson, I must say, was annexed by the Russian army at the end of September and currently is a regular object of the strikes by Ukraine at its infrastructure, such as hospitals. Oh, we've lost Anne-Laure.
We can't find her.
So if you just recall, she said Ukraine was like Ukraine, and she said civilian infrastructure. So the moment she mentions that Ukraine, not Russia, are the ones here doing this attack, she gets cut off. I don't know, fam, but I've seen this happen way too many times to think it's a coincidence. That's all.
Fam, I am in love with somebody. Her name is Claire. She's one of my
Oh, yes.
favorites. I mean, I don't know how you cannot fall in love with Claire because she is so just
Fire.
vicious and fire and fearless and just friggin' just on the floor of Parliament, right? And
Yeah.
this was talk about labeling some people state terrorism. Just Claire, everybody. Let's check her out. Convo Couch. I'm gonna mute us up. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. Go over to Rockfin, check us out. We're also on Rumble as well as YouTube.
State sponsor of terrorism is a term of US law. It doesn't exist in EU law. But a Zelensky advisor called for it in the Parliament magazine, and here we are again reporting for duty. And all it will do is make peace harder to achieve. Exactly, of course, what the extremists want. No peace, no off-ramps, all bridges burning, and Ukraine a permanent abattoir in a suicidal holy crusade against Russia. So, if you want to start naming state sponsors of terrorism, let's do it. European sponsorship of Israeli terrorism in Palestine. Western sponsorship of Saudi terror in Yemen. ISIS, the product of French, American, British, Turkish and Gulf sponsorship in Syria and Iraq. Decades of right-wing US-backed terrorism against the Cuban Revolution, the Contras in Nicaragua, death squads in Guatemala, in El Salvador. Remember Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, horror after horror, terror after terror. There's nothing constructive about the pot calling the kettle black. Would you ever cop on, start championing peace and end the war, which is patently in the interests of EU, Ukrainian and Russian citizens?
Fire, fam. Fire. Fire, fire, fire. Fam, you're muted. Unmute. Fam, you're muted.
I was saying, I don't know how she got in, but they let one slip because, yeah.
I mean, she was awesome, and she had all the receipts. All the receipts. All of them.
Yeah.
She didn't miss
It's only
anything.
state-sponsored terror when, Russia is defending itself. I mean,
yeah.
I don't even, it's just insane. I mean, I loved how she called out every single thing that the West has done.
Should we keep this in a separate section and read off some super rays real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Let's just do that real quick. I think I can see them from a distance, fam. I might need your help. Roar Media, hey, Shanda, Amber, everybody out there. Linda, Pasta doing a great job on the ones and twos. Fee sounds awesome. And I believe it's Melanie Baloo, right, fam? I don't know if it says the Convo Couch received a tip, so it is always appreciated on the couch. I can read them from right here. We also have Mariah Myers, who just jumped into as well. Mariah, that was Melanie Bellew, by the way. Thank you so much. Mariah Myers, the best peaches in town, the best peaches in the class, the ever-rising middle class. Much love. And fam, I learned from Mariah that peaches do go on pizza. Awesome. Made an awesome pizza. Yes, fam. I sauteed some onions, mushrooms, and peppers. I put that on the boboli with my vegan marinara with vegan parmesan. I laid out basil and slices of peach that I got from Mariah. Fam. Better than ever pineapple, better than it was.
Really, Mariah?
Oh my God. I have pictures.
I have my doubts. Peaches on pizza. I don't know. I'm not a fruit on pizza kind of gal.
You're not a fruit on pizza type of girl either, but I mean, every once in a while, peaches for the win. 362 hanging out on YouTube. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all our chat people. Jilly Love, Lucky Burrito, and everybody else hanging out. Fred Edwards always hanging out. Arem, thank you, Arem. You are amazing. We can't do this without you. We can't do it without all these awesome new people. We are 40 plus over on Rumble. Fam, make sure you go over to the Rumble chat, talk to some of those conservative friends on over there. They need love too as well. So please do.
Fam, I have breaking news. Kit Cabello and I are making a truce peace negotiations on the pizza war because we're going to focus on combating this disgusting thing that I saw where it was Oreos on pizza. and
damn.
it was like tomato sauce and
Ugh.
cheese with Oreos. And so we think that's just an abomination. So we're going to unite forces to defeat that monstrosity. So breaking news, there's a truce.
Jalapenos are the only good fruit on pizza, fam. That's from William Wallace. And I got belittled over here by I can't think it says VS Adams. Pasta doesn't make his own dough. I do, but not all the time. I had a cauliflower dough. Like, I can make my own dough, and I'm trying to cut it down on the carbs. So I got this cauliflower crusted dough because I was really watching. As fam could tell you, I'm getting skinnier. So I was watching my weight, and I was trying to take it easy from the white flour dough, and I made a cauliflower crust. So it was amazing. That on top of all the beautiful peaches. Fam, Jilly Love says peppers and over pineapples.
I agree, Jilly.
Especially if you saute them, but I hate the taste of the green peppers unless they're cooked down properly. So,
Fam, you're making me hungry.
Tomato is a fruit, fam.
It is. But it's not, like pineapple and peaches. There's just pineapple, okay, I will take, but peaches, not on pizza. Peaches,
what about
shout out to
pepperoncinis?
peaches. Lucky Burritos Bird.
Oh, Lucky Burrito. Lucky Burrito's Bird is awesome. By the way, pepperoncinis and
I love
peaches, that would be good. You get a little vinegar, a little hot, a little heat, a little kick, a little sweet. That's kind of like me. Pepperoncinis and peaches. Rockefeller oil concessions in Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, 1932. Petrodollar. Look it up. Pizza is a vegetable. U.S. Congress. Thank you so much, guys. Let's go ahead to this last part. Fam, talking about pizza. Could you put lettuce on pizza, fam?
Breaking news, the lettuce one, guys, and we'll show what we mean. So Liz Truss resigned as prime minister, and they will be electing a new one. Electing, but really, they're going to be the people, not the people, not the constituents, but the people in power will be electing one. And of course, 16 of her own lawmakers called on her to resign. This is after poll ratings showed her to be highly unpopular with conservatives. Truss had only been in the position for 44 days, the shortest term in history. So people are saying this is a Zelensky curse, right? Because everybody that Zelensky hugged or Zelensky met up with has been gone. And Assad, of course, remember the Assad curse. So, she wasn't really fond of Putin. In fact, she was so awful when it came to Russia, Ukraine. She was extremely pro-Ukraine that Biden thanked her for holding her foot down on Putin as she was departing. So, fam, if we can put up the next one so we can show the I guess I'll also mention this because I think this is part of it. No, go back now. I'll just mention this real quick. The leaders of the opposition Labour Party called for immediate parliamentary elections. And one of them said, this cannot go on. Britain deserves better. Britain can no longer afford the chaos of the Conservatives. We need parliamentary elections now. So, guys, this is interesting because one of the reasons Liz was also unpopular was because of her position on Ukraine as well. And a lot of these conservatives, kind of like in the United States and in England, a lot of these conservatives in the same way, they don't want to keep sending more money to Ukraine. And unfortunately, the Labour Party has been infiltrated. The Labour Party is done. I mean, they're pretty much liberals, kind of like the Democratic Party. And so the Labour Party, a huge faction of it, is very much pro WEF, pro globalization, pro, all of this stuff. And now they're going to try to take back power, but even they might put someone in there that's just as pro Ukrainian as Truss was. So you might get one of those. You might get another conservative. And so this is really just, it's not going to change very much, I think, in terms of what's going on in the UK. And it's hilarious that she didn't last that long, but We have a meme.
We do?
Yeah, it should be in the next Twitter.
Well, this
No,
is a
the-
good one. I know, but one bottle lasts longer than 3 conservative leaders. Not that one, huh? Chucky laughing? Let's see if we can find this meme, fam.
It's in the folder. Should be in there.
It's in the folder.
Yeah, it should be another tweet.
Okay, I'm gonna
No?
go to it right now. Hold on.
Come on, fam.
I
Fam,
see.
get your
My
shit
bad.
together.
Fam, give me a break. I
Put it
got
in
it
the
up right-
box.
Fam, I got it for you. Here you go.
Yay! I'm excited. This is. I just thought it was funny.
You're
Thought it
fine.
was funny.
There it is.
So who must go? Putin must go. And underneath it, fam, if you scroll down, somebody put the curse. I think maybe if you scroll down a little bit. Oh, there's Assad.
Yep.
Making an appearance.
Boom. Roasted.
I don't know if I see
Oh,
it.
there's Laddie Daddy. A revolving door at number 10 was where the prime minister is.
There's the lettuce.
That lasted. Hey. Fam, there it is.
The lettuce.
Ah, fam. You have a little
yeah.
bonus AO sizzle, right?
I do. So there's a lady that's.
We saw this. This is humiliating because after that whole situation. Go ahead, fam.
So, okay. So there's AOC has an opponent. She's a Republican. And what I don't agree with is her calling AOC a socialist because AOC is a freaking liberal CIA prop. She's not a socialist. What's her name? The Republican lady?
Marjorie Taylor Greene?
No. Her opponent, AOC's opponent,
I
is
forgot. Isn't it a black woman or is it a
No, she's like an Italian. She's like your people. She's like
my people?
Tina something. Tina Forte. She's Italian. She's clearly Italian. Clearly. Anyway, AOC won't debate her. Okay. Now,
not.
Tina Forte, I don't like that she calls AOC a socialist and she's bad on immigration, all these things. But she did say some valid things about what the establishment did during the COVID and what they've been doing and how they've been ruining New York's economy. She made a lot of great points on her advertisement. I have to give her props for that. So people came and booed AOC, and this is how AOC reacts. And tell me if she's not looking kind of crazy with this sort of behavior.
Very classy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay.
We love you, AOC. Thank you.
I'm not allowed to be in a room with the lights turn off. It gets a little. That's one of the things. All right. Listen. Okay, listen. Okay. All right. Listen. Okay. All right. Listen. Okay. Listen.
You want me to do it? All right. I can't even do it because it's so fake. Listen. She's trying to put the freaking Bronx accent on. You see how she turned that back on?
That was embarrassing. Listen.
Would you stop fucking literally just tokenizing Latino people. She's not like, it's just so gross. It's so gross. And I'm offended. Okay. Like, I'm offended that people like her exist and they're tokenizing like her own culture. Like, she doesn't talk like that. That would be like me trying to talk like that. I don't talk like that, guys. I'm not gonna go and pretend to put on like a Sofia Vergara accent and be like, yes, and this and that, because that's not how I fucking talk. And it doesn't make me more working class to pretend to talk like that. It makes me a fucking fake. And like,
when
she's
Fam
just
does the
like,
goddamn Marissa Tomei, I lose my shit. So let alone,
imagine your Dia.
Fam, I'm gonna mute up. Your other friend. Listen, we also have to add these in the doc. We'll section them out. We'll have a Gaddafi section. We'll have the middle section, and then we'll have the Liz Truss and the squad section. So let's make sure we'll label these out. Our guest is not coming today. I have not heard from her. Things are really crazy over in South Africa, but we'll get her back on the show. Shabnam, we're way past the time.
Listen, Pasta, listen.
Fam, get into the doc. Make sure we section these out. And here we are listening to the squad, fam, because all we get from the squad is bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
Wait. We gotta describe.
Set it up.
This is. Because
it's Anya Presley. Here, I'll do this.
Ayanna Presley.
Ayanna Presley.
Okay.
When some of us unexpectedly ran into the squad members, Presley, on Tuesday, we questioned her on her position on the Israeli apartheid. Over the following clips, she descends into meaningless HR speak and eventually yells at the students in desperate attempt to avoid taking any position. And fam, this is something that's been going on. This is something that's been going on with the shit libs for quite some time. They avoid their debates. They avoid questions. Like I said, that time we got in the room and we asked Kamala Harris a question, just look at her face. It says, oh shit, all over it. Here's Ayanna Presley. I'm going to mute us up. Guys, you know the drill. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe.
Okay. Yay.
If that's what you are, a student leader, just never lose that.
I was just going to ask you a question because SJP, so Students for Justice in Palestine, meets in here.
Okay.
And we were just wondering, do you support BDS? So boycott, divest sanctions, and what your stance was on that.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to say that you support that, I think it's pretty important.
Yeah. Well, first of all, how often do you all meet? I'd love to come and be a part of a meeting. Can we do that?
Yeah. Well, so we meet Mondays.
Okay.
Here at 7:30.
So I'm usually in Washington Monday through Friday, but when we are in legislative recess, I'm here, which is why I'm here this week. And can I participate in a meeting via Zoom or something? I would love to do that. Okay, so let me tell you this: as an African American, many of the progress that my people have realized would not have been made possible without boycott. Okay, so I would not be here and have the freedoms that I have were it not for that.
Would you oppose the funding for the Iron Dome in Israel?
I voted against the Iron Dome funding.
But would you continue to oppose that? Because a lot of times they've seen, a lot of the politicians who, first would oppose, something like the funding for the Iron Dome, eventually switch their position, and one of your colleagues, AOC, she did that. There's a bunch of other politicians, not only Palestine, but a bunch of different issues. So I think would you continue to oppose any Iron Dome funding or any funding really for Israel apartheid?
I don't think it would be responsible for me I don't want to have a one-off discussion here. I think it's important. I'd rather just talk to the whole group.
It's just a question. Yeah, it's just a question.
No, but I just would like to do it. I came here to be in support and an ally around reproductive justice. And that's what I'm here for in this moment. I would love to come back and have a conversation with you all so it's not a one-off and we can talk about the whole agenda. But there is not any position that I've taken where I would ever just say unilaterally, this is what I'm doing no matter what, because that's not how the legislative and governing process works.
Fam, you need to listen.
Listen.
We got more though. We got more. So let's not, because that was just I mean, any thoughts about that, guys? This is some bullshit right there. There's not any position I would take whatsoever. And she's still, I mean, if you were a supporter of Israel or if you were a supporter of Palestine, you would mention it there. You would say, listen, I'm standing with the Palestinian people. I condone what's going on. This is wrong, yada, yada, yada. If that's not your position, then just say it. But all you get is, what's the kafarful?
She's just giving PR, HR speak, like the like the tweet described. And yeah, you asked me if I was in Congress. You asked me what's my position on Palestine. There'd probably be a Palestinian flag. Like if I was in my office, I'd be like, well, Israel's an apartheid state, and we need to stop all funding. And you know what? Technically, they don't really have the right to exist. But let's just at least talk about they would throw me out in 2 seconds. Like I wouldn't last like 30 seconds. But like this is like, and of course she can be more diplomatic than that, but and still have a pro-Palestinian position. But they don't. I mean, they're going to, they suck on foreign policy, guys. They were a mistake. And I feel personally responsible for falling for it to a certain degree. AOC was the one that we really saw more. Everybody else was kind of like a little bit more milquetoast that we thought. We were like, It turns out some of them are better than her because she literally voted for the Iron Dome.
By the way, Aram left a super rate contribution that said, "Ayo, sheesh." I'm gonna
listen, Aram.
Listen. Oh, AOC, sheesh.
Additional Iron Dome. I took that vote not because I don't support safety for Israelis and Palestinians. I took that vote because the night before we would not pass an eviction moratorium, and we were going to evict millions of people in the middle of a pandemic, which is why I slept on the steps of the Capitol, because I thought that an incredible hypocrisy that people were going to go home when people were about to be displaced. And then the next day, under the cloak of night, they asked us to vote for $14 billion to the Iron Dome without any debate or any process. And that is why I took that vote.
So it's not a moral issue, it's just...
No, I've taken many positions, moral issues. I've taken many issues and many positions, which is why actually, in large part of the positions that I've taken around the conflict, it's one of the reasons why I have to have support, because of the death threats that I receive. So my record is clear, my commitment is clear, my solidarity has been clear, and I have jeopardized myself and my family in taking those positions and those stances, and I do it gladly. But what I don't want to do in order to build the integrity of our relationship is say unilaterally for anything, I'm just going, this is why I don't sign pledges. I don't sign pledges and I don't do that because I don't think that that's the way to build integrity with you. I just don't.
You're standing literally in front of a sign that says "We stand with Gaza." There's groups in this room, who are very strongly opposed to Israeli apartheid. It's not a very complicated thing. There's like a colonizing force that for years has killed millions of Palestinian people.
No,
it's not that hard to just take a strong stand
when
against that.
When I'm taking a position, particularly if it's the first time people are ever hearing me take a position, this is just not the way that we go about that. When I say that the people closest to the pain should be closest to the problem, driving and informing the policymaking, I mean that. Position on Iron Dome, I took that compassion and outrage, and that's how I seek to move. That means that I'm engaging and listening actively to every party before I come out with a decision, a statement. Sometimes I have a decision, but I haven't made a statement. So this is just not how I go about making a statement.
Honestly, it just sounds like beating around the bush to me. And
I'm not beating around the bush.
You're not the first politician to do
I'm
that.
not
So
beating
many
around
people
the
have done
bush.
that. Just take a basic stand. You stand with the Palestinian people. You stand against the oppression of Palestinian people.
Respectfully. What I am saying to you, I'm actually offering you something more than just this moment. I'm saying that I will come back and meet with your group. You can stream that live. You can ask me whatever you want to ask me. But I came here today in solidarity on reproductive justice as chair of the Abortion Rights and Access Task Force. I asked to come here to lift up these student leaders for creating this vending machine. Okay? They didn't ask me to come here. I asked to come here. I'm not running from you and I'm not dodging anything. What I'm asking is just the respect of a protocol and a process, because that's how we function and that's how we move. So I'm just asking you, I want to build integrity in our relationship, transparency. I'm hiding nothing. But you were trying to have a meeting with me right now when I'm here meeting a different organization and group, while you were also putting something online. And that's not, to me, that's not moving with integrity.
You're a public official. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, we have some questions.
I have a lot of. I could ask all of you.
Didn't even know you were coming.
I could ask all of you similar questions about a variety of topics, but I'm not going to do that. First of all, let me just say something.
We're all politicians.
No, I don't make. This isn't about being a politician.
But you are a politician.
This is about being members. I'm not a politician. I'm an elected official. Okay.
Fam.
Get in there, fam. I'm not a politician. I'm an elected official. I'm a civil servant. Get the fuck out of here.
It's very simple.
We got more if you want.
This issue is very simple, and I say it all the time. There is no both sides. There is one side that is committing genocide against Palestinians. These people are living in an open-air prison. It's an apartheid state. I'm sorry. You either recognize that, because she's like, I know, or you don't care, or you want to keep your doors open with Israel and Israeli funding and all of this bullshit. So that's the reality.
She's not Cynthia McKinney. She's not taking on the lobbyists. She's not taking on on freaking AIPAC. She is being well behaved. And this is the last clip of her. Well, there's two clips because there's a town hall the next day.
And I am a lawmaker, and I'm a thoughtful lawmaker, okay? And I think that I have proven I have been more progressive and more strident and taken more stances that have been disruptive, that have flying in the phone in the face of my party and put me and my family at risk than anyone who's ever stood in this seat.
Just leaving
and I just want some acknowledgement of that.
Just leaving Palestine aside. I go organizing the Commonwealth projects over there, and there's a resident who says that you took videos of her apartment saying that you'll help her conditions, and you didn't do that. She's been trying to get in contact with you.
That's not true.
No, that is
and
true.
Actually, no, sir. What's true is
she's repeatedly gone and tried to get in contact with you, and you still haven't responded.
Listen to me.
You tell me you actually care for
No, I wrote. My mother was a tenants' rights activist. I wrote the Tenant Empowerment Act. We have been unable to get it out of committee to a vote in the House because I don't have the support from my colleagues. That is a legitimate bill. That one means if you pay. I lived in public housing. I just came from a whole thing with public housing. I lived in public housing. I know what it is when there's deferred maintenance and you're growing up in complete crap. And you don't feel like your life is of value. I grew up with the lights not working, elevators broken, roaches and rodents. I'm one person. I have taken all the right votes on that. I just told you I slept on the steps of the house because they didn't take a vote on the eviction moratorium.
Right now, so many residents of Boston who've been trying to fight for something.
Sir, you know what I would like? Sir, you're not being fair to me right now because this is berating and attacking. I'm asking you to give.
Fam, I got one more clip over here of this that I think it's important.
Violence.
Yeah. The violence. Representative Presley invited us to a town hall the next day to talk with her more, but we were ignored and shut out, and her staffers immediately cut off the line to speak with her once we were up next. Now, she said, fam, right? Let's respect the process. This was all about the process. We'll have another sit down. Today we're here for a different reason. All I ask that you respect the process. And also, I done this. I slept on the Capitals. You didn't do shit for fucking housing for people in the COVID.
It was a PR stunt. Nothing happened out of it. Yeah. Literally.
About it. So here it is the next day at the town hall meeting. Let's take a look. Let's see if she kept her word.
So we stood in this line waiting to talk to Ayanna Presley, and now they're cutting us off to be.
Yeah, there's other forums for you to ask these questions.
The people in front of us will be the last people to ask
a question. It's definitely just a coincidence that we're the last people who are not allowed to ask questions.
This is very explicitly after being invited to this forum yesterday.
So we stood in this line waiting to talk to
Fam, shut out by Ayanna Presley. Ayanna Presley.
Yes, shout out by Ayanna Presley, fam. Unbelievable, but totally believable because the squat is useless. The squat.
More recommendations from Aram. Sheesh and Chong's Up in Smoke. Thank you. You're the best, Aram. I love you. 64 people hanging on out at the Rockfin. 40 people hanging on the Rumble. Those numbers are growing every day. Pretty soon, Rumble's going to be more than Rockfin, and there's over 350 people hanging out on YouTube's pretty decent crowd for a Friday, fam. You got any plans for the weekend other than work?
Yeah, I do.
What are they? Why don't you share them with us? Here, let me make you a big screen. Go ahead.
No, what?
Share what you did this weekend, fam.
Just hanging with friends, fam. Just hanging with friends.
What kind of friends and what we're hanging?
Friends, fam. Just friends.
Yeah, sure. Speaking about friends, fam, this weekend's a big weekend for us over here. We got a lot of fun stuff going on. Tonight, there's going to be a comedy show, and that is at the South Point, and Brett Ernst will be there. So I got that going on. I also have some cooking going on this weekend, fam. I'm going to make a vegan bolognese. I'm going to make some tiki dal, lentil dal, and I'm going to also make some split pea. So I got that going on. And then there's a fight. There's a whatchamacallit fight tomorrow. A UFC fight, fam. A big UFC fight. There's 3 awesome fights. There's a Russian fight, and his name is Jan. And Jan is fighting against Sugar Shane O'Malley, an Irish dude, who really is moving up the ranks pretty big. So we got that going on, fam.
Your mom's is so your mom's hair. You got what I need. Oh, it's over that big.
Can we hear that? Can we hear
Yeah.
that? Just want to make sure.
Get them girls, man. What's up? Yo, I got a little story to tell you.
Have you ever met a girl that you
Fam, this weekend, when you want to hang out with just a friend, just hang on out. Have a good time. So that's it for the Convo Couch. We'll be back next weekend. Next week, we have a big week. We got to get some people on, fam. Man, when you say she's just a friend.
Sorry.
All right, enough of that. Okay.
Bye, guys.
We're
combo out.
Yeah, we're done for the weekend. We'll see you guys come back. Thank you to all those people who showed that love, to our Patreon, to givesendgo.com/the Convo Couch Brazil. Fam, on the 29th, the day before the second round of the Brazilian elections, I'll be at an election integrity event in your stomping ground, your old stomping grounds of Orlando. So we got a lot of fun things going on. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for everybody for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella, live in Moscow, Russian state affiliated woman.
Thanks for watching the Convo Couch, everybody.
Combo out. Myself.
Fam, don't leave.